Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Royyan Kurniawan. I am the student of English Department student, Universitas Bengkulu. Today, I want to present my thesis proposal. The title is The Correlation Between Student Utilization of Google Translate and Student English Writing Skill of English Department student. Okay, the chapter 1 is introduction. The first is background. In the background, as we know, in this modern era, using translation tools in English as foreign language, teaching and learning has benefits. The strategies of using translation tool in the classroom can remove student anxieties, worries, and also make them more confident and relaxed. Translation can also help the student deal with their difficulties such as lack of knowledge, memorize, and retrieve some complicated words and structure. According to groups and month, in language teaching and acquisition, the advance of technology always have an important role, and in the classroom, they have been recognized as a valuable tools for autonomous practice. And the next is Google Translate. As we know, is one of the product provided by Google, has become a popular translation tool for language students, as English is still considered as a foreign language in Indonesia. Many Indonesian students appear to use Google Translate to help them in learning English. This tool tends to help the student to get the translation quickly and easily. And in learning English, there are 4 skills that need to be mastered. They are reading, speaking, listening, and writing. One of the most important skills that need to be mastered is writing skill. Writing skill is the most important and needs to be separated and special attention because writing is considered as a difficult skill for students to acquire. The reason behind this issue is because writing skill has many components that student needs to master in order to have a better writing performance. For example, subject, verb, agreement, word order, and diction. Therefore, many of English foreign language learner have difficulties when writing, and the existence of Google Translate appear to play an essential role to help them while writing. So the researcher chose the writing skill to be studied because when the researchers doing an internship at the school in the Bengkulu city, the researcher found many of the students on the school have difficulties in writing, and many of them asked to the researcher to use the Google Translate to help them in writing. So based on the researcher experience, the researcher is eager to doing this research to discover the effect of using Google Translate on student writing. Specifically, the study will to find out whether or not the correlation between student score toward the use of Google Translate in writing is significant. The researchers hope that the usage of GT or Google Translate in language learning could be better utilized in the future. And the next is a research question. The research question, is there any significant correlation between student utilization of Google Translate and student English writing skill of English department student? And the next is research objective. The research objective is to find out the correlation between student utilization of Google Translate and student English writing skill of English department student. And the next is limitation of the research. Limitation of this research is to discover the effect of using Google Translate on student writing, and the population of the research is limited on the 3rd semester of English department student, especially in paragraph writing subject, and the sample is random sampling. And the next is significance of the research. Significance of the research, the first is for the student. For the student, the study can provide to motivate the student to be aware of their self-efficacy when learning a language, especially in writing skill. And for the teacher, this research expected to be useful for the researcher to know the level of the student mastery in writing skill. It is also as information, the using of Google Translate as a media to improve the quality of teaching writing for the other researcher. In this research who are interested in developing teaching media, the study could be useful to provide scientific reference for further in contributing the effective media in teaching writing. And the next is hypothesis. The first is alternative hypothesis, or HA. There is a significant correlation on the use of Google Translate in English writing skill. HO is rejected and HA is accepted if R count is more than R table. And the second is null hypothesis, or HO. Is there no significant correlation on the use of Google Translate in English writing skill? HO is accepted and HA is rejected if R count is less than or equal to the R table. And the next is definition of K-term. To avoid a misunderstanding about the K-terms in this research, the researcher provides several definitions regarding the title of this research. The first is a correlation. Correlation is a measurement of the relationship between two or more variables in which a researcher measure two variables, understand and assess the statistical relationship between them with no influence from any external variable. And the next is Google Translate. Google Translate is a free multilingual machine translation product provided by Google, has become a popular translation tool for language students to help them in learning English. And the last is writing skill. Writing is an activity carried out by adding it to the paper or other media in the form of sentence to express a message or concept which must be mastered by the student and taught well by the teacher. And the next chapter is chapter 2 about the literature review. The first thing is writing skill. According to PH 2010, page 58, state the writing is the communication of content for a purpose to an audience. And Harmer 2007 state that writing encourages students to focus on accurate language use. And then the next is a kind of writing. In starting to write something, a good writer must know the purpose in writing. So in order to writing well, the writer must know the kind of writing first. Mainly 2006, page 1, mentioned there are 5 kinds of writing. The first is expository writing. The second is descriptive writing. The third is persuasive writing. The fourth is creative writing. The last is narrative writing. So we can conclude that before we start writing, we have to know about the kind of writing first. So the information and ideas that we want to convey will be appropriate and easy to readers to understand. And the next is the aspect of writing. Brian and Rosa, 2011, mentioned 5 components that should be considered in writing. First component of writing is organizing idea. The second is grammar of language, and the third is vocabulary, and the fourth is mechanic. And the last component that should be considered in writing is content. And the next is about the translation. Kholiluddin 2007 state that translation is a procedure which leads from a writing search language text to an optimally equivalent target language text and requires the syntactic, semantic, style, and text pragmatic comprehension by the translator of the original text. And Hatim and Monday 2004 state a very important distinction between three types of translation. First, intralingual translation. The second is interlingual translation. And the third is intersemiotic translation. So, from the above definition, the researcher conclude that the translation has several types of translation. In this case, a good translation must know and understand the type of translation. It is an important thing that must be good translator mastered and understand so that the result of the translation will be good and in accordance with the purpose of the translation or the text being translated. And the next is Google Translate. Google Translate is one of the popular translation machines that provided by Google. As we know, many of Indonesian students appear to use this tool to help them in translating this. And this tool tends to help many students to get the translation quickly and easily. According to Crowley 2016, Google Translate is perhaps the most used online translation service, and as of 2016, over 500 million people were translating 100 billion words with each day in 103 languages. And the next is previous study. The first previous study is Chandra and Yuyun. The title is The Use of Google Translate in EFL Essay Writing. And the second is Gianetti 2006. The title is Google Translate as a Research for Writing. And the last is Maulida 2017. The title is Persepsi Mahasiswa Terhadap Penggunaan Google Translate sebagai media penerjemah materi berbahasa Inggris. So, based on the previous study above, the difference of this research to the previous research is the research focus to identify the correlation between student utilization of Google Translate and student English writing skill. And the next is chapter 3 about the methodology. The first is research design. In this research, this is a quantitative design by using descriptive approach science. In this research, the researcher will use correlational research model, one of the quantitative research model. And the next is population and sample. In this research, the population are two classes of English department student and paragraph writing subject. In this case, the researcher will take all the students of class A and B as sample in this research. And for the instrument of the research, in this research, the researcher will use questionnaire and documentation as the instrument to get the data. And the first is questionnaire. The type of question is closed questionnaire. In this research, the content of the questionnaire will be some question about the student utilization of Google Translate, and the researcher adapted some question from ESLP 82 questionnaire to the participant. And the scale to measure this research is Likert scale. And the scale, we can see the table in the slide. In the category, there are 4 categories in the table: strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree. And strongly agree, the scale is 4, agree is 3, disagree is 2, and strongly disagree is 1. And the second instrument is documentation. The researcher get the data by collecting student writer score from English lecturers. And the student score will be divided into 4 categories. And the categories we can see in the table on the slide. And the next is research procedure. The procedure of the collecting the data used in this research are, the first is arranging the questionnaire, and then checking the validity of the instrument, spreading the questionnaire of the sample to get the data, collecting the data of the student writing score from the teacher, analyzing the data, and the last is making the conclusion. And the next is data analysis technique. In analyzing data, the researcher will use is correlation product moment formula, which was developed by Carl Person. And the formula we can see in the slide. Okay, so the researcher determine the interpretation table of product moment scale that will describe the correlation between both variable as follow, according to Hassan 2009. And the table we can see in the slide. And the criteria in this research, HA is rejected when RXY or R count is less than R table, and HA is accepted when RXY or R count is more than R table. Okay, I think that's all for my presentation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.